Good morning, dear colleagues. We are beginning the third track of our conference, plenary session of a conference. Yesterday, it was the first day of the conference. We received a huge layer of information about questions dedicated to the first track that was in its turn dedicated to the new literacy and lifelong learning. Then the second one, we concentrated on the ecosystemic outlook at these important elements of the modern education, new literacy. Also, we had sections. We had them on 8 new literacies that for today we are ready to go through. And based on the Moscow State University and other network organizations and network interaction, we've been going through and sorting out, and it's been sort of analyzed for years now, because there's a certain agenda that we established and follow from year to year. Now I'm welcoming you to the third track. This is about new literacy, long education, and casing. So today we will talk about the cases that reflect in themselves more or less one area of lifelong learning or another, and whatever pertains to it. So today we'll be working. Logically, we'll move into the second day. We have to take into account the developments that took place yesterday, that we discussed at the plenary sessions and sections as well. Yesterday we had great talks, great reports that reflect different types of ecosystematic, several methodological approaches and anthropological approach from the point of view of the culture environment approach. We had several talks, several sessions, and the systemic active approach. That this is the Russian tradition that allows us to ground our conclusions based on Russian experiences, as well as the European practices from Italy, for example, the foresight approach and the technologies that are concomitant to that. And also we analyzed some other ecosystematic issues, and this topic was always part of our work, especially in the application to education. So this topic was extremely important to consider as far as the bridges between new literacies are concerned, so that we would be able to understand actually how these new literacies and the modern idea of the lifelong learning, how they can be actually connected and configured, and how they augment each other in different programs. So today we'll hear it practically. Yesterday we went through this very carefully at 8 different types of new literacies. Yesterday we received, and I really have to underline that, to emphasize that in our tracks we will have 2 talks. First talk is by the Moscow State University and the Regional College of Finland. These are 2 talks that will show us the practice and the international experience of interconnection, various peculiarities, various properties of 2 big educational organizations. So this is the first block, and the second block in our today's track 3, is related to various practices that are outside the routine educational system, and they actually represent new ideas, new practices that we're developing recently. This is entrepreneurship, tutoring, cerebral tutoring, and the last one will be there. So this is in the last block will be about how the continuity of education can be considered from the point of view of literacy. And for all of you, and especially for the speakers, I would like to emphasize that the issues, the topics that were discussed yesterday here they're even mentioned. The names are given. Well, I tried to reflect that in the schemes that we can be discussing today. So one of the important questions that we inherited from yesterday is the work that answers the question what the ecosystem actually is and what it exists for. Yesterday, we could correlate that the ecosystem and system is definitions, and whatever is asystemic, let's call it just anarchy, chaos, whatever you want to call it. This is an important area of knowledge. It answers the question how order comes out of chaos, and how order comes from non-systematized formats. Let's just call it anarchy. So let's say it's just a cultural philosophic tradition, and the management tradition that is related to the topic of chaos, anarchy, entropy, and so on. So what does it exist for? How does it influence new literacies? From the talk of our Italian colleague, we took this idea of bridges between different literacies, and so how do ecosystem and new literacies correlate? So this is another question that we have to answer that comes our work yesterday, and how it also influences the institutionalization of lifelong learning. What new formats and forms are being created, and how it influences the official idea of lifelong learning. The four questions is the ecosystematic nature and practices of education. This is about what in the process itself we can consider and how we can solve these issues of the ecosystemic nature. And well, this is what I want to say again today. Today we have our ground our work in the methodological approaches that we already considered in the foresight approach. And of course, it's all very interesting, and I would like to declare the third track open. And its beginning is also open. The first talk is about the experience of the practice of lifelong learning in the Moscow City University, Moskovsky городской университет. So you can write questions, or you can ask speakers questions, and if we are being now translated through the YouTube channel covered there, so we will be able to get the moderators will get these questions and they will necessarily answer them. So we can choose one question out of those several to answer right here, face to face, or they will answer it later. First talk, Marina Mikhailovna Shova, executive of the Institute of Lifelong Learning of the Moscow City University, Moskovского городского университета. Thank you very much, Yana Vladimirovna. Good morning, everyone, or good evening, or good day, whatever you have. I would like to wish you, in the work of our conference, our track, and the following activities, productive work and deep questions that we have, and how you demonstrate your involvement in this issue. I think that this is the general problemity, because in terms of depth of your questions, it's quite easy to understand just that how professional you are, and you are very interested in our topic of lifelong learning, for it to become real continuous, real lifelong, and we are now in search of new methodology and new systems and the correct approaches that would be able to create for us the conditions for continuous lifelong education of all um, social groups in our population, beginning from the youngest all the way up to the most senior year, or silver year, cerebral. Uh, so talk about students and talk about uh, the silver age, and this is how I'm showing practice. Right? Uh, how we consider these possibilities, these issues of this education in our university. And we understand that today the readiness to the intention to learn about life is one of the competencies. Uh, Yesterday we spoke about these the new literature that are relevant in the 20th century, and that they are uh, they are uh, the competencies that allow them to be successful at any age. We learn throughout life. The amount of information, knowledge is year to year. Seems that today the usual graduate knows more than it used to be. If we compare with, for example, 18th century, 17th century, we will definitely know that these students are more advanced, more educated. However, we have to say that uh, the that we have to keep learning and we have to keep improving. Where is that contradiction? Where does it come from? That the number of people in education increasing, the number of knowledge in those increasing, the demand for further knowledge and further education, further human involvement, and it is increasing. So, very technical solutions. Apparently, you have to help me with the next slide. Here's the slide. You can see the research of the School of Economics in terms of the shortage of competence challenge for a system of education. What is it that we can see? And, the year, the age gap between the actual experience and in knowledge, competence is necessary for us to be successful. Is increasing. These areas in intersection between what we actually know and what we need to know. You see that in the young year, it almost coincide, but the older we become, the bigger the gap is and the smaller the general area is, which means that we have a lot of work to do. We always have to perfect ourselves because we experience the demand in knowledge all the time. So this is the tendency that is understood on the federal level and the federal priorities. And if documents that, for example, any program of the course or university 2030, not 30, which is the criteria of the success is either of additional education. And we understand that's already been created, is not effective. But here's the gap. Here's the gap that we have in basic education, in additional uh, are demand. So that will be successful, that will work for the benefit and personal interest of each of our people and each of our students. We need methodology. As a red line of the entire conference, we believe that this approach, uh, is conducive to the transfer from the traditional education one, the traditional education that's based on the hierarchic approach, that's not sensitive, not market, not time sensitive. It uh, move towards something more flexible, something uh, that answers the challenge around the such challenge that last year had to adapt very fast to business. And when it comes to new class changes, new choice appears suddenly and develops immediately. Well, this the issue we get in this case. And of course, we have to understand vectors of changes for us, representatives of the educational system, vector that will allow us uh, to experience in those ways for the future. Understand that when our graduates come out of school and go to the graduate university and then to work, perhaps it will, we will understand very clearly that the knowledge that we have acquired over the last 10 years require further development, and the professions have either modernized or they disappear that the labor market show that how competitive this is. So um, of course we have to find ways how to find this new format of technology, and, and of course the technological development that is the trend, the world change challenge rather. It's not surprised that it came sort of the Facebook policy. Vladimir Vladimirovich, our president, said that uh, the frontline technologies works will continue to be created. They will only work if the people who are using them know how to use them and can use them, develop them, and utilize them at the best of their ability. This is where our next lie, new new content technologies and the personalization. Next slide, please. So what do we uh, what, what can we say today? Uh, let's start from children. Despite the fact engineering technical knowledge is the priority, and those with us understand that these are the these are the directions that get priority financing on the part of the government and department. Well, of course, it has to be developing as well as logical development are present about that moving in that direction. You have to understand that the world trend today is moving from STEM to STEAM, and we're moving from we're moving towards inner disciplinary um, uh, technologies and knowledge integrate each other, and without uh, uh, the product that's necessary for our market, for product and the knowledge and competence that are necessary will never be created. We have to learn to master instruments, the tools that will allow the child to independently create uh, and independently explore the world and the culture of creating and development and project activities and to help to help the child to find his way here professional ways to make it professional. So the center of this university central project activity of our you even input it in the name, get a name of our university that main technology is the project activities in the research activities, and our Star Pro Research Center tries to correspond these vectors and keep the come study and learn set. Okay, I must have told you about this yesterday. Well, so about people a year that attend various workshop sections in our center. We get to modern stories that integrate uh, interdisciplinary uh, approach, uh, interdisciplinary approach. Well, if you this laboratory of material science and art, and that encourages self uh, determination for a child and making the right choice and the ways of modern content and the project is exactly what is created info platforms for the kids for us to create this ecosystem development of creativity and create situations for making the right choice. Well, we have to understand that when kids uh, work with an interest, they do want to achieve the and get the people that are people who will provide them with content and that allow them to solve questions, the problems that are really necessary for them, that answer their challenges, range, and of course these platforms that allow possibility to give our children professional knowledge, professional competence, is what we're trying to create in our universities. These cases is the non-grad platform, not a grad platform. Well, we're working for 8 years with no, perhaps a lot of our colleagues are here with the non-commercial organization, and I hope that this direction will be developing in the future. This structure that creates conditions for the development of methodology, technology, technological in this manner that will take place for the 11th year, take place in a round of in our university. Well, this is always something real and uh, the possibility the leading experts that are working in frontline technologies and self-realization of every key and team spirit that will solve the question together with everyone. When interesting projects are created, when we create something in the non-grad program, well, solve the problem uh, uh, in different uh, situations. Several years ago, we opened the resource center within Africa. It's the competition in all Russian uh, project challenges, and you can see uh, you can see it in the filter. Uh, well, the next slide, please. So, dear colleagues, we are moving from kids to adults. Next slide. Technical support will move us to pedagogues who are pedagogues that are meant for with this territory. Without the mentor, without pedagogue, without structure, without the teacher, nothing will be effective. Uh, Nothing of what we're talking. Let's talk about profile and try to understand if every one of our teachers and instructors are ready to be developing this technology and to actually uh, create a new interest. And how does every teacher feel that, and how is he ready to create this knowledge? Right here, you can see the research that's done by our colleagues from the higher school of economics. It was done last year during the biggest pandemic crisis, and wanted to understand the technological readiness of teachers and school executives if they're being prepared for innovation. So you understand that the executive are a little bit higher in this indicator, teachers like a lower indicator according to the scale. Well, last year the indicator was not so high, and the increase in the last year either. There's not been a second chance of what going to take place. In the meantime, we can assert that the last year was the average median level of preparation. What do teachers say about that? They usually try to point out that partly the situation is good and partly it's bad. Some of them say that they are prepared, but the technical assistance is good enough. Some of them say that it's enough technical as well, but they personally are not in possession of enough sufficient number of technological and technical competences and tools in order to be able to use it effectively. Some of them are getting upset about their inability to work. The last point that they say is that they need help, as you can understand. Next slide, please. So we are the representatives of the traditional professional education system, and we have to understand it as a challenge, as a sort of task for us to create a necessary for them to acquire this overcome shortage of their abilities to implement those decisions. What is that? That is key factor for so well ensuring the available. Of course, the digital detective here is important. The world today is such that we cannot be living outside the digital. Uh, digital life. These are technologies that allow us to implement new technology for the children and to implement more modern products. Them. And these technologies will allow us to do that. And the teacher today is in great demand teamwork, and this is why this becomes a priority for us, but it requires certain qualities, personalization of the approach, because each of them has equal problem that has to be dealt with. And so the approach should be extremely personal in this case. So we have to help them with the first, then we have to work in partnership because these new technologies are usually they come from innovation companies. So these are uh, practices that are priority for us. Suhan spoke about that yesterday. Next slide. Uh, so when we talk about particular trajectories of personal development, speak about the qualification upgrade. Here we have two main directions. First is when we have to student immediately, and we work with a sort of pedagogical team is prepared, task and work this deficit shortages. So
common deficit. And I'm not going to say that always goes through teamwork, through probation, a discussion, implementation into practice. It's an obvious task. And the second vector, and a completely different trajectory we can take, it's individual education. If the first one, we're dealing with solving general pedagogical tasks, as here we're working specifically on we're dealing with the deficit of the teacher. At the first stage, initially, we have to place the teacher in a reflexive position, allow him to go through diagnostics. It's not an attestation procedure. It's not control. It's diagnostics that allows me actually to, as I work on case task, as I consider the pedagogical situation, and be just pondering on how the solve can be task can be solved, how I would act in a certain situation, and establish my deficit areas as I study the task. Maybe my issue is that I haven't mastered certain technologies. Maybe I have a low level of communications with class, and so forth and so on. And after that, with awareness of deficit, we can construct the individual educational program that works specifically on alleviating this particular deficit, rather than some sort of professional development and general counter. We start working, in this case, we work precisely directed. So we need a program constructor for that, where each module would be geared at specific competency that can be established in process. Is going to be established in process of these diagnostics. So that's just as an example of what can be, what can emerge as a result of this diagnostics. We have a certain competence profile where we can see what's doing well, where they have deficit, and as per these deficits, what I get. I have a set of classes, like short modules, and I, as a teacher myself, can teach only the things that I'm interested in, what correlates to my deficits, or some things I can postpone until the later stages of my professional training. Right now, I'd like to note to 2 or 3 areas. So it's once again choice territory that gives a teacher the opportunity to look at the existing deficits and determine what's important for me today. And below you can see our partners that we have developed this diagnostics with, and we started planning individual educational programs. And you can see our campaigns. You can see our for 2 years we worked with the Russian school teachers abroad. We're dealing with developing education programs based on deficits, and the intensive trainings conducted by this company is also based on the diagnostics that we together with the index developed at some point. Next slide, please. Next, we determine the possible routes and trajectories. We're always in search of the necessary technological solutions, the design of our programs that will allow to effectively work with either a pedagogical team or within the framework of individual education program with each particular teacher. I'm going to mention our partnership program as an example. This project was executed within the framework of the project. I didn't hear the name of the company on the Tertiary Series Education Center. It had to do with a project and a research activity in school. This program was attended by natural science teachers and additional education teachers, supplementary education, and we have discussed how project and research activities can be organized, what sort of content we can work with. It would be interesting to learn that we have actually put our teams into their own project position. We gave them an opportunity on their own to deal with the cases where that includes some project or research tasks, and see what comes out, what kind of a content the children are working with. And of course, we've naturally dealt with what kind of questions they are most likely to hear from children. We spoke of some methodical nuances, how the children executed these cases, and we propose the teachers also take take the student position, and that's own project activity. It was really engaging, and as you probably understand, other than that, the given platform and just as far and also just seeing this platform was quite interesting. So the platform was attended by representatives of various regions, and when in the same when we had representatives from all sorts of learning institutions, and they all worked on a common case, and then how that case can be implemented into one's pedagogical practice. The sort of the pedagogical part of our project work. Of course, they started exchanging their regional practices. They started sharing their personal experience as teachers, and that, in my opinion, that was, I think, the best platform for professional growth, because we were exchanging our experience, and then there was, and of course, the teamwork allowed for. Accumulating the existing experience and find some new qualitatively new solutions to bring forth to some new solutions. And also, I'd like emphasize that just actually being familiar with a serious platform. I mean, what kind of platforms are, because we're on a science park territory, and it really allows us to show what sort of equipment our talented children are working with. So every children can, so every teacher can see what are the opportunities the country and the educational center can offer to our talented children. Of course, in the regions, they do not have such advanced platforms, but the kind of content that we've provided in this case, it was adapted to the regional practices. Of course, content-wise, we weren't looking at the material base that Sirius has. It was important. We just want to show other platforms that there are such conditions created for our children. Well, in search of the new content, what is relevant today for the children, how you can work with it as a pedagogian. And of course, we turn to our partners for that. I have mentioned that partnership to us is one of our key priorities. Here's an example of programs that we've developed together with Lego Education, and those company representatives as developers of this learning equipment are part of the program execution. You can see, so we have a program for both senior and junior school students, which allows to open the educational potential of Lego, and it's much higher than just the skills that in most primitive ways can be interpreted by our parents and are not always recognized by our teachers. From then on, literally a few minutes, perhaps I may have, I wanted to speak of our experience in search of new technologies that, once again, that's something that undertook together with our partners. And I would like to note, I would like to speak of a few of our programs that were developed together with Rosnano and the peculiarities of the technologies that you use in these programs had to do not only with teamwork, but also with engagement of children into teamwork among pedagogical teams in search of new technologies. So this shadow technology behind the mentor. When I observe how the mentor works with children, when I observe and I may take something on into my own practice, and naturally this camp format that I spoke of, it was quite an interesting solution to us, and I recommend all the colleagues here to give this technology more attention. So what are these camps? Camps are it's learning in camps. It's immersion into a certain practice, and once you create a territory, a camp territory, it's important to have three key positions, three key principles. Learning by experience. We learn together as partners, and we make mistakes together, and we have distributed responsibility for shared responsibility for the team result. Next slide, please. So educational route in our programs. the programs were constructed as a nesting dolls structure. It included 4 camps. The first is boot camps. First of all, we would place the teacher in a researcher position when they would learn methodology of project and research activity in the area of natural sciences. As they immerse themselves in this problem, they would discuss the existing regional practices, because once again, the program was a standard of over by representatives from over 20 regions. Those who went through the first camp and was interested in going deeper moved on to the next camp, where the teacher is in the position of a designer, where they started creating their own program, their own pedagogical project, and that's also joint work. That wasn't a bit of work between teachers, but also included children. At this time, we didn't only conduct the transfer of best practices, as we create the general program for working with children. As a rule, it's a supplementary education program, but the actual children are also participants in terms of content, search for the interesting technologies that would interest children when executing this program. And the next camp, it had to do with technical entrepreneurship. When what was developed at the previous camp was assessed by business representatives, the kind of customers that would want to buy this program. So that's the sort of a marketplace that was organized by our team. We've prepared the project. All of the programs in natural sciences or technologies, and we've invited representatives of the leading technological companies or research centers. It's interesting to know that within the framework of this camp, we have organized the very observation of the mentors that within the framework of Nanograd dealt with the same case. So this teachers camp took place in parallel with at the same time as Nanograd's work. Last year, Nanograd was online, and our teachers had the opportunity to observe how these cases from the factories work on project teams with children, to see how the mentors work, what questions are put forth by the manufacturer, how the defense takes place, how the children's team work. So that was also a very interesting practice in the technology that later was engaged in their project. Involves when it comes to the defense, it was all quite serious debate with the best business experts present, and that was our battlefield. Next slide, please. I'm about to draw the line. Tatiana Vladimirovna understands that we're running out of time. This program was constructed on it was built as a constructor in modules, where you can stop at some point and leave the process as you receive a certificate for the number of hours within the program, or you can continue moving from one camp to the other. Okay, the program consisted of invariant modules. You see that we've used a nanotechnology case as a base, as actual content of the technology is what was reflected in the children's projects, and there was an invariant technology of mentor training, and the variative modules. It's immersion of into dealing with research projects or extracurricular activity or additional education supplementary. That was up to the teachers, depending on the professional position they take. I'm not going to show the results. I think it's quite clear as is. Next slide, please. So those are our contacts. I will be very happy if the practices that I've presented today, and there's actually a lot more out there. I could talk about it for about 3 or 4 hours. If you're interested, we're willing to share, or we're willing to create some joint products, and we call upon you to join us for partnership and collaboration. I'd like to say that what we have presented today is of course, naturally, it's not a systemic solution just yet. Systemic solutions take something bigger, to take a transfer of sorts. It takes change in methodology. It takes changes in the in the changes in the system of the continued professional education, supplementary education. So we still have a lot to work on. We still have a lot to think about it, which is something I call upon you to do. And we're looking for. We're very happy to collaborate and to partner with others. Thank you for your time. Thank you so much, Marina Mikhailovna. It was a very important opening paper, I think, where you can see in a systemic way, because you can see the existing programs and the outlooks for the future. Thank you so much. We have a few questions. Tatiana Mikhailovna, please, co-moderator. I didn't hear the name. Yes, hello, dear colleagues. Well, considering that Marina Mikhailovna is, she had the first paper, that's why we'll ask 2 questions, because we already have 2 questions in the chat. Marina Mikhailovna, the first question is this. From your point of view, what are the most crucial ecosystem traits that should be present in HR, management, and pedagogical block of the educational system for the university? So if we look at if we use the ecosystem approach, what is it that we need to change in management, HR, and pedagogical areas? Thank you, Tatiana Mikhailovna. Thank you for the question. It's a very good question. I could stop for another 40 minutes here. I could take another 40 minutes here, but unfortunately, I cannot afford myself to do that. I cannot afford to do that. Yeah, you're right. In order to create the kind of a territory of partnership and choice, it takes some changes in all of these areas, dealing with human resources, changes in the management system, changes from the standpoint of framework. I also think that's also a management system, and that's a separate vector that shouldn't only be discussed. We need to create this larger flexibility, this greater variability. Maybe move on to do hub projects. That's something that we do in our university. And perhaps Tatiana Mikhailovna, to put it briefly, this question cannot be answered plainly. It's actually a complex task that has to be dealt with seriously and researched. Perhaps Marina Mikhailovna, maybe on future conferences, we'll have to establish a separate topic, management in ecosystemic approach. And also Gennady Nikolaevich asked a question. Gennady, maybe you'll just verbalize it here. Yes. Can you hear me? Yes, thank you. Thank you for the paper. It's very systemic, but I think that the key traits of ecosystem in institutions of higher learnings, and we started discussing this yesterday, is interpositionality. It's shifting between the various positions. And in your educational route, you have there were different positions presented: designer, researcher, and so on, further down the list. So it's very important to maintain this trait. Ecosystemic trait of shifting positions in order to avoid formalism. It's like on the queue. Everyone makes a transition. Everyone's happy, but nothing happens. So how do we avoid this formalism? I don't have the answer for this question myself. I propose. Yeah, I just like to. I'll be very brief. You bring forth an absolutely correct question. It really does. Have to be considered. The only thing I have to say that there was no formalism there. If you look even at the profile of the learners in a certain camp, when the teacher would take different positions, we have to understand that if on the way in, at the start, we had 300 participants. When it comes to the designer position or tech entrepreneur, very few people made it that far. Some people left at the first stretch, understanding that they're not able to rethink their practice and to move on to another position. So you're absolutely correct. No formalism, only motivation from our side, and the decision is up to the teacher. And also we have to create the condition to gain a certain position, and that's not easy. And that's why I finished my paper saying that those are interesting practices, but they're not systemic just yet. It's just it's like those innovation practices that have to be thought of. And they have to be thought of to become systemic, and that takes a lot of work. Can I just? I would like to move these questions you see, we're having a discussion, and it's planned for the end of the track. I would like to move these questions towards the end of the track, and that's when we'll be able to. We can really have we can have the discussion later in more detailed way. So I'd like to express my special thanks to the track participants, to the speakers who have already started the discussion. We will have a wonderful discussion towards the end of the track. You can get prepared. Marina Mikhailovna can prepare an elaborated answer. So it's great. It's a great start. Thank you so much. Let us move on to the next paper. The next paper. We have a representative from the Finnish Regional College, director of expert education department, education expert department, Helena Hoskinen. It's a major regional college that includes 14 colleges, and you'll see it in the paper. And the experience of the college in ecosystem in the city of Tampere ecosystem that. Follows the track of a smart city, and this is so all of the ecosystem built accordingly to the strategy. And that's why I can't hear you.
Sorry. Do you hear me?
No, Senator Russian. Thank you so much. Helena, please take the floor. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Hello. I hope you can hear me. Is it okay, everybody?
Yes, it's okay. We hear you.
Thank you for the notion. Okay, my name is Helena Koskinen, and I work for the vocational college Tredu in Tampere region in Finland. And my topic here is this vocational college Tredu in the ecosystem of Tampere as a smart city region. And my attempt is to try to give you a picture how this kind of vocational college is positioned in Tampere and part of the smart city program. And I hope that you can see also my slides already. Do you? Do you see the slides?
Yes, this is a slide. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so next one. So here's briefly my background, and I have been working for this pedagogical sector since 1999, but before that I worked this private forest sector, and I have to say I raised this from that point of view that if you want to work for vocational training and education, you need to have practical work behind experience work behind you, so that you can really give that elements to the students that they need for the future work. So this is one thing that I am very, very proud of my private forestry background and experience in work life. But then to the business. So I try to open this. Okay, this way. About Smart Tampere first, that you know that what kind of region or what kind of society we are working. And like I said in the beginning, that I want to show that why this kind of vocational training and education on college level is very important for the region of Tampere. And one part is this Smart Tampere program. There is 3 different kind of elements in this program: ecosystem program, digitalization program, and sustainable Tampere. And I have highlighted this ecosystem program because this education is part of this program. It's until 2030, and all these 3 programs is running right now. This implementation is led by the city of Tampere, but also Tampere Region Economic Development and Business Tampere and companies, a different kind of research institution, organization, and city residents. This is us like a common target, so no one is able to do this alone. That's important part of this smart program. And here is this smart city ecosystem. It can be visualized as themes, and I have here the smart education on the right. is part of these 7 different kind of elements. There is smart industry, health, government and citizen, mobility, infrastructure and building. And there's also these 4 different ways how to do these things together. And like I have written down here on the right, this vocational education supports the basic capabilities a city needs: build, develop, work smart over time. And actually the smart education is part of these other 6 elements. It's inside, although it's also separated to be like own element. And how to do this? How Tredo is doing these things? Of course, because we give training and education, so it means that we have content and we can give competence to students and all kind of students. And I have to remind that our students, the age range is from the 16 to 65. So we educate all different ages and all kind of people. So we have also, for example, 2 years ago, we had one doctor degree person who wanted to be an assistant nurse in his future. So it doesn't matter what is your background. So we will give this practical competence. And like in these 7 ecosystem elements, we give to every element, we have different kind of training and education on offer. So there is some examples. For example, ICT, there's business information and communication technology. And it doesn't mean that you have to always do qualification. You can also come to us and fulfill those gaps you have in your competence. So it's one important thing that in Finnish vocational training that we don't overlap studies. You get what you need. And for example, from the future literacy point of view, so we will head to the future, what is needed in the future. And then the Council of Tampere region, it's also very important council. It gathers together 23 municipalities around Tampere, the city of Tampere. They are independent municipalities, but they have this kind of council where they discuss together what kind of things is needed in this Tampere region, what industry needs. And they together, they build the picture about the future, and also discussion is between authorities and companies, all kind of actors in the area, so that we monitor these things from very different point of views, so that we can really know what is needed in different cases. And one important group inside this Council of Tampere is training group or education group. It brings together education providers in the province or this Tampere region, public bodies, municipalities. There is business representatives from the business communities and entrepreneurs. Also, there is young people, this kind of representation of young people, so that we also listen what they expect, what is coming, what are their needs, how they figure out the future and their life. So because you know that quite often those other representatives are a bit older ones, so we need also the discussion between old and young people. And this training group, they are drawing up a regional plan for vocational training. And like Tredo is one representatives, but there is also other colleges and universities, of course, in Tampere. So all kind of actors are represented in this group. And the training group of the Council of Tampere region serves as a provincial and strategy level interface between trainers and employment actors in the municipal experiment in employment management. They make proposals to direct resources according to the anticipated needs, and Tampere region is ready to start a new development phase in the development of education and anticipation of competence needs. So it also monitor, and because the discussion, the people who are part of this training group, they discuss about these needs in the future. So because those young ones, especially when they study now, when they are 16, 18, so they should work next 40 years. And what kind of competence they get now? Of course, they have to study again. There's lifelong learning. It's obvious that you have to do it. But anyway, so you have to get in the beginning this kind of competence that you understand that you need to study later on. You have to keep your competence updated. And what is the way? So this motivation and attitude to understand that this is not over after 3 years. This will be the lifelong period to do these studies, and it's a necessity. And one thing about this Finnish education system, one important part is this no dead ends in the education system. This is, I like our way to do these things. So like I said, that there was 2 years ago, there was one person who had this doctorate degree. He said that he would like to do something practical thing, so he came to study with us, and now he's a practical nurse. So it means that whatever you start, whatever is your starting point, it doesn't matter, because you can end up to be a doctorate degrees, or you are already there, so you can start to study again and be, for example, practical nurse or truck driver or whatever. And Tredu, we have on offer this general upper secondary education and vocational upper secondary education. You can do both of them, but most of the students, they do this vocational upper secondary education. But if you are older one, so you can go straight to the further vocational qualification if you have work experience already, and this demonstration test, you can show what you know already, and this is the way you can go up. And there is those percentage, so education level of the working age population is so that 44% has upper secondary education and 45% tertiary education. There is still 9% who has only basic education, but most of our population has other levels. Next one. What is the way of Finnish thinking in this vocational training, especially in the college level? So we had this reform a couple of years ago, and we changed the thinking totally. So we have divided these things in changing working environment in 4 sections. There's working life, skills to meet the need of the changing working life. Like I said, that we try to focus on the future. Then students, they have different needs. We have to pay attention to that and accept and admit that there are different needs, and we have to make individual study paths so that people can reach those goals they have set. Society, everyone has a study place after comprehensive school. So this is something that is real, that when you go further, so you will have the study place. And this tuition is free in Finland. Economy, more efficient use of resources targeted to education. So this is one thing that, like I said, that we try to avoid overlapping studies, so that when we have a student, so we try to find what is needed. And competence-based mean in this whole thinking is so that we increase students' real competencies. There need not to be traditional classes anymore. There's competencies can be gathered any way. It's most efficient at work, in school, or during leisure time. We calculate everything, we recognize it, and we of course compare those things that the student has done to our curricula, and if it's matched, so they need not to study it anymore, but of course they have to show in the demonstration test that they really know how things be done, so that it's not only that we just accept that. Of course they have to show the competence, but we concentrate on missing competence. So that's why it's those study hours are also shorter than they has been before. And teachers are more or less like facilitators or co-evaluators. So they guide students to next level or to next task. And also funding has changed 2018. So it also, may I say, force us. I like education providers, so that it's calculated and measured so that how the student get the qualifications, do they finish their studies, is part of this funding, but also that how quickly they can get the job, and is our training as good level as is needed at working life. So it's part of our budget money, 15%. Of course, if you go to further studies, so it's also calculated, but employment is one part. And about then Tredu, what is Tredu? So it's a bit different training. A bit different college than other colleges in Finland. It's owned by 12 affiliated municipalities. There is 40 locations in that Tampere region. There is several locations in Tampere, but there's also in these other municipalities, and its host municipality is City of Tampere, but City of Tampere doesn't own this college. It's owned by these 12 affiliated municipalities, and its administration comes from the organization, from the City of Tampere administration. It's highlighted by yellow in the middle of this slide. So we will get the administration and decision making is inside the City of Tampere, but this kind of this committee, this Vitality and Competence Committee, it's consists of representatives also from Tampere, of course, but also the other municipalities. So it really serves whole area, whole Tampere region, this province. And about Tredu, so we have this kind of vision. We have professional head start, brave, bold, and fair Tredu, technologically more intelligent future entrepreneurship, sustainable way of life. And here these diamonds, you can see that those are those municipalities around Tampere. And my mission is to provide and maintain professional expertise, enable individual learning paths, develops employment and economy, and accelerate entrepreneurship. And we are socially responsible and promote good life. And those values, like I said, is brave, bold, and fair. It's very Finnish saying. So they are here open that brave means that as a major service provider, we are brave enough to visualize, experiment, and make the impossible possible. Bold, we are proud of our expertise, and we can guarantee a professional head start for you. And fair, equal and fair operation help establish trust that allows for an open environment, which is why it's always easy to come back. And this easy to come back is one important thing that we hope that people come back to us to fulfill the gaps in their competence in the future also. Like it was said that we are the second biggest education provider in vocational level in Finland, so we have quite wide study sectors in Tredu, and also good number of these qualifications in basic qualification, also this further studies. And learning at Tredu is acting in working life. This is something that we emphasize all the time, that as much as possible we have all the time the discussion with the companies. And annually we have 10,000 companies we approximately cooperate, and it means that we have company visits and guest speakers, of course, but students, they have the apprenticeships, customs training. We train companies and work-based learning, service for career counselors. These are important part of this work. And students should spend most of their study time at work, but so that these teachers, they all the time they monitor and support also the entrepreneurs, but also, of course, the students too. And what is entrepreneurship of the future? What does it mean in Tredu? So this is when we talk about this ecosystem, that how Tredu is situated in this whole thing. This entrepreneurship is important part, and not only so that you are going to work as an entrepreneur. So it's also important to understand when you work for somebody that your attitude is entrepreneurial. So this is also the thing that we emphasize in our studies, that the way I do my job is influence my employer and this company. So if I do my work well, so it means this company is going to also cope with different difficulties and cope with this society. So this is quite not that cool new thing, but also something that we now quite a lot put effort to raise up this thing. And this entrepreneurship and an entrepreneurial way of working and important success factors in future working life, like I said. And so also we have success in the Skills Finland competition in the entrepreneurship. So it's something that we quite well succeed in these competitions. And how we do it. So we have set objectives until 2020, so that there will be set 480 companies by students until 2022, and so there is already 55 established at the end of 2019. Last year numbers I don't know yet, but this is something that it's going to happen quite easily. And also this produce and enable all students to choose a degree in business planning, working in company or other studies related to business for at least those 15 credits. So it means that you understand how these kind of enterprises work. So it's very important also. But how it's possible to do if the staff is not doesn't understand, or they don't have this kind of background in entrepreneurship or in companies. Actually, when you want to be a permanent teacher in vocational level in Finland, so you have to have at least 3 years work experience before you can apply for teacher training and get those licenses. So it means that everybody has already. So, but there might be sometimes longer time you have been at work. So we also inspire and encourage staff to promote entrepreneurial activities. And those teachers, they have, of course, all the time the connection to companies, because the students they spend so much time at companies. And the Measure Studio has a voluntary entrepreneurial tribe to teachers and other staff. We have members in almost every location, and with the aim of expanding a tribe to include a tribal person in each location. And the tribe meets regularly to learn, share experience, and network. And then in the spring 2020, Tredu teacher Tarja Manner received in the Young Entrepreneur Teacher of the Year award. So it has been quite good training. And then we encourage students to become entrepreneurs. So motivate and encourage entrepreneurship through functional methods. Build a clear and branded operating model for how students who are interested about entrepreneurship are directed forward on the entrepreneurial path. So we have own path for those ones who want to establish a company. But you can also just study, and there is no need that you will establish it. But anyway, you know how to do it, and perhaps you will do it in the future. And at the SLUS event 2019, 8 entrepreneurship students from Tredu participate take-off entrepreneurship event, and they got some kind of prize. I don't remember now what was the prize, but anyway, they were asked to participate, and they succeeded also there quite well. And what are those parts I mentioned? So in internal way in Tredu, we offer these kind of things. We Junior Achievement Finland, business planning, optional part of the degree, operating in a company. we have also these cooperatives inside Tredu, so they get practical experience how to do things. And the entrepreneur apprenticeship agreement is also available, that so you can develop yourself and your company. So if you have already this company, so it's possible to use apprenticeship training for that. External networks, there's a different kind of things available in Finland. So part of them are run by state and run partly locally, and also these private programs. But Work Pilots offers young people the opportunity to work experience in the form of gig type work. This H4 entrepreneurship, I suppose that you know. So this light entrepreneurship, so it's a flexible way to run an entrepreneurial business when you go gig work in addition to studying. So it means that you can do it not that serious way, but you will get again this experience how to do it, and other things also. Some platforms are available also that you can learn these ways. But then back to this starting point, how this vocational education and vocational training, what I just gave you a very small glance. So it means that these things are done inside colleges together with this Council of Tampere region, and they are all part of this ecosystem. So we have, of course, the quality measuring and steering, so that we are not able to do whatever we like, but there's quite a lot of things that we can decide locally. Central steering comes from the state level, educational priorities, minimum time allocation, national core curricula size of state subsidies, but locally we can decide also locally educational priorities, local curricula, those things that we need, Tampere region, allocation of subsidies. We can decide which branches we will, for example, support more than other ones if they are very important for us in this area. Class size, recruitment, teacher evaluation, and quality assurance. But the quality is also it's very important for us, and it's also influence our subsidies and this budget money. So self-evaluation, skills demonstration. Also, the students evaluate us. They give back feedback what if effect on budget. Certain level must be got so that it doesn't reduce our money. System and thematic evaluation and national evaluation of learning outcomes international assessments. And if I come back to this starting point in the very beginning, where I show you this. Here, this smart city ecosystem. So you can see that those things that what I said in the beginning, that there are infrastructure, mobility, government and citizen. All these things are inside this vocational college Tredu, and we can give the competence to reach those targets that are set in smart city programs. So we have a very important role in this whole system to keep it up, because most of those things, smart mobility, smart infrastructure, it's made by workers coming from our colleges, builders, drivers, nurses, whatever. So this connection is clear, and it's very important. And these things that like this entrepreneurship, so it helps our student to figure out that if they want to do things on their own, or are they willing to work for somebody, but all the time the same attitude that I work like an entrepreneur without own company. So then this makes this society to work. There is a very short list about those activities we have. Of course, beside of this training and education, we do cooperation agreements with other colleges in domestic abroad. We have education exports. We do projects, a lot of EU projects. We have, if I remember right, we have something 50 EU projects running all the time to develop our activities. We do cooperation with educational institutions and other actors. Skills actions is very important, word skills, as to show, to participate. Actually, we don't very much push those students to improve their competence in skills competition. So our idea is so that because we give so good quality and high level training and education already, so they should quite well manage in these skills. And we have got, even we are very small nation and very few members or participants in these competitions. We have some good successions anyway, but this is the idea that everybody must get good competence. And then this source material to my presentation is found from these internet pages, and I have to say that thank you for your attention, and I hope that you got idea about this, how we do this vocational education in Finland and Tampere region, so that from this literacy point of view, this future literacy, so the aim is there so that we could predict what is needed, but even we cannot predict exactly what is needed, so we can give to our students those tools that they can react and understand and see those coming expectations or competence needs beforehand, so that they can steer their career right way or change the career totally if they see that there is no new future or that it's not important or interesting to them anymore. And that's why in Finnish system it's very easy to change the career to these programs and add. If I start to study, for example, to be a practical nurse, I can pick up other parts from other programs, of course, certain amount only, but anyway, I can fulfill my competence from other programs so that it matches better in that work that what I need. Okay, this was my presentation. So, okay. Fine.
Thank you very much, Helena. This was a very good experience, very good speech, very good report, very good understanding of what the ecosystem is. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And this is the phenomenon, the ecosystem must be included. There's no sound, не слышно звука. Звука нет. Can we ask a question?
Yes.
Can we ask a question now? I already sent your 2 questions from the chat, but
Okay.
I believe that it's a little bit difficult for her to answer it now. So she will just read it and she will answer that. There's 2 more questions, additional questions that are there. All right, I will send those questions to her, so she will probably be able to answer.
Okay, you mean the students entering universities or colleges are already, okay, this one.
Есть студенты, которые тоже могут как бы участвовать, да, быть приняты в колледже.
Is it okay if I write to answer?
Хорошо, если я вам в письменной форме отвечу. Yes, it would be best if you write. actually. It would be best if you answer in a written form.
Yeah, I can answer right here. There's this question I have to think about shortly.
But on the other hand, dear colleagues, I'm an employee of this college, and some of the questions I can answer. I cannot hear. No. There's one particular question. Maybe you can answer that. Why do companies agree to take students for internship or probation? What is their motivation for that?
Why they take those students to study? So actually, yeah. So the reason is so
Почему
that
они принимают? Потому что я объясню. Потому что
when the curricula is done in national curricula, there is also companies participating the
когда
plan.
учебный план подготовлен, некоторые компании тоже участвуют в его планировании.
And the companies, they think that when they have those students during the studies, they also see those competence and the attitude of the student, so they can choose later on what kind of workers they are going to have.
Что когда они привлекают к себе студентов, они уже могут на них посмотреть, и они могут для себя понять, в частности, каких дальнейших сотрудников они могут вообще для себя привлекать, и, вероятно, она имеет в виду, что из этих студентов привлекать тоже.
So they don't get any subsidies, they don't get any money about those students, but they see that it's important to have those students at work when they start.
Они не получают за это никакие финансовые привилегии или мотивацию, но они просто понимают, что вот эти студенты это важные кадры, с которыми они потом, может быть, связаны, и вот тогда им будет отдача.
So they want to do their own role, and
они как бы хотят участвовать в этом.
It's voluntary, but the attitude so that they want to take those students.
На добровольной основе, но очень часто они действительно реально заинтересованы в том, чтобы это сделать.
So they can influence also the quality of the teaching.
Они могут повлиять. Thank you. Okay, they understood.
Okay. So I will answer the other question.
Я могу на другие вопросы тоже потом ответить.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Helena. Thank you very much. It was really useful and interesting. We will send you a number of questions. Unfortunately, the sound disappears, but she's trying to tell you that she will send you perhaps a list of questions, and you will be able to answer them in the way that you desire.
Okay, thank you. It's okay.
Okay.
Yes.
I can answer some questions by the course of the discussion. So now we are moving to the second part of our track. We already discussed the time limits for our reports, and if we keep the time regulations, we will have a very nice, well-channeled discussion. Discussion is extremely interesting. We've already understood that we like information exchange. Now I'm turning the floor to the speaker, who is an expert and a developer in the area of the programs for entrepreneurship. Yelashkina Anna will tell us about the best tech park in our country according to a lot of ratings. And now there will be a very interesting experience presented to us that is based on the Timothy interpretation. Can you hear me? Yes, thank you very much.
Yes, can you see my presentation? Yes, we can see your presentation, great. So I'll try to keep it within 20 minutes. I'd like to thank the previous speakers. And the Russian, both the Russian and Finnish sides. I think it's set up the great context for the conversation. It saves me time for explaining some motives. So it's all quite obvious, the kind of a direction we're headed in. My paper, teaching technological entrepreneurship in technopark environment. It's entrepreneurial practice program for students. Just to put it very briefly, what sort of activity we're speaking of? Company group, Technospark company group. It's a headliner of a startup studio network. It's a part of Rosnano Foundation for Infrastructure and Educational Programs. I'm not going to read the whole slide now, and in the future I'm not going to read the slides either, because for what I understand the presentation, you can look at it now, or it can be forwarded to whoever wants to see it, so you can see it in more details. The most important to see on the slide, you can see a bird's eye view of what a Technospark looks like. 10 years ago, it was just a field. Now there are 4 buildings inside of which there are it's densely populated by technological businesses. Technospark is rated as most efficient technopark in the country. It's a long story to tell. It's quite a powerful place. Over 500 high-tech workplaces, which is quite crucial for Moscow region. 75 startups from scratch, plus 10 every year. All of those material technologies. So we can see the sort of technological directions we're working with. It's logistics, robototechnic, it's electricity storage, medical high-tech equipment, composite materials. So it's a huge range from various labor distribution systems within new technologies. And such startup studios, there's quite a number of in the country. You can see them on the map. Technospark as a headliner. This is where the startup factory model is developed. What makes this model different is that we're not looking for projects. We don't go through project selection. We have our own companies. We open them on our own. We have a business idea generation function, entrepreneurial function. We need people in our open company, and we have a great density of our activity within Technospark. Unfortunately, the level of entrepreneurship in Russia. Well, I'm not going to go into discussion of the reason. It's a matter of serious research to see why it happened this way. But the level of entrepreneurship is dropping in Russia. Not only in Russia. I spoke with our European colleagues in Belgium and Holland. People are complaining that the level of entrepreneurship in society is low, and as I say, is also dropping. Our stats coincides with the global assessment of about 0.5% of the population want to be technological entrepreneurs, and out of these 0.5%, only 2 can be technological entrepreneurs in reality. So the key conclusion to be made from the stats, there will not be natural growth of people with competencies for technological companies. About the same stats are presented by colleagues from other innovation institutes. As Bank accelerators indicate about the same outlook. Who else could be cited here? Skolkovo is showing about the same stats because we're having a deficit of entrepreneurial competencies. So that's somewhat different from the positive enthusiasm towards school entrepreneurship. I'm not going to speak of some issues. Where does this enthusiasm go with adults? We have what we have. This is sort of a reality we're dealing with. So what do we do to to provide technological companies with people with such a gap between the internal and external environment. This is a question we're faced with. This is a question that other innovation structures face, something that accelerators face, and major companies and corporations that start working with internal entrepreneurship. There's a lack of people with the necessary competencies in any case, but it's quite obvious that engaging people into new projects or project selection is an investment situation. Someone has to invest into it, and the absence of people with the necessary competencies it means higher investment risks, significantly higher investment risks. What solutions are implemented in Technospark? So this is a slide meant to show once again our situation. This is the density we have inside, and the external environment this is sort of a density we see within our, I guess you could call it an ecosystem. Perhaps I would address this question to you, to the ecosystem approach specialist towards the end of the paper. Maybe you could qualify us whether we are an ecosystem or not. But the thing is that we actually internally we have a very high density of activity. What we do is we've established the entrepreneurial practice, and the choice students within Technospark are junior partners in construction business for over one school year, 9 months. It allows us to multiply entrepreneurial competencies within our business environment. Every practitioner in a few years, that's anywhere from will create from 3 to 5 new companies where each company would have anywhere from 3 to 10 high-tech workplaces. We have special measures we take special measures of the natural number of people that are capable of creating high-tech companies. So we try to increase the density with artificial means. How does it work? First of all, I'd like to clarify that what we see entrepreneurial activity like in our business environment, since Startup Studio takes upon itself some of the functions that are normally are done by singular entrepreneur. What we have left is a carcass of entrepreneurial activity. It's technological and production analytics. It's economical and investment calculations, organization and development and production of products, and sales of high-tech products. You can see that it excludes some administrative work like accounting, but HR. That's what the structure within the Startup Studio that's responsible for. That's sort of the model of the actual technological entrepreneur, the constructor of tech companies. And I'm not, I don't call these things literacies. To me, those are more in the area of skills. And from now on, I'll be speaking in the language of competencies. We have the 3 pillars of learning high-tech entrepreneurship within our Technospark model. And all of these pillars are constructed in a special way to multiply the speed of turnover and growth of knowledge base in our business environment, and accumulation and development of competencies. We have a unique technology of competence diagnostics. We have the second. Our second pillar is giving business ideas to the student from our Technospark roadmap. So the student receives a ready business that's already opened with a business idea from our roadmap. And this business idea is a part of a labor distribution system that we're constructing. And the third thing is learning, is teaching senior partners. Maybe some Finnish colleagues will recognize some of our approaches that are similar to their approaches, because of course we're talking about mentorship. Okay, business ideas from the roadmap only. What does it mean? That means that it's a tested hypothesis. It's a legal entity. It's an investment line of about 1 or 2 million. It's infrastructure, including contract businesses surrounding a small startup, and that's why in this kind of an environment, the result is possible, a tangible result the vital result is possible in 9 months. To get a business result without this sort of immersion into a business environment and without having the pre-made hypotheses, a regular person in a regular environment can do it in 5-7 years. I think it's an unjustified loss of time, especially in our situation where we need to move fast. And it's, as it was well stated, as priority of the state, and that's why the immersion, this sort of a startup, as everything is done, it saves a lot of time. The senior partner instructs the junior. That's our key principle. We believe that a young startupper, in our case, it is a student, but actually there are no age limitations. Here we're not only working with students, even though I'm talking about the startup diploma program, but we also have adults. A young startupper can also be 40 or 50 years old. If somebody decides to go into business, not having ever done it before, a partnership with an experienced entrepreneur function is a transfer into economical reality. It's a social lift of sorts. You can see the picture where we can see a small person, a child. Oftentimes they don't have the weight to go up in the elevator because the elevator is not registered by the elevator. It's the same thing in business. A young man or startupper does not have the weight to enter real business relationships. We see this all the time. We're constantly studying the situation, and we get complaints from people, from businessmen, that they cannot make it to the negotiations in the right place, even with a good idea, even with competencies. They don't have enough weight. A senior partner, it's not an external mentor. It's also a person that's building a company as a senior shareholder, as a senior partner, and together with a young startupper, with a young person, he's a part of the construction. He's not an external mentor. He's also included into the process of decision making, and he's also interested in the success. So he's a co-owner of the startup in essence. The closest term that could be used, it's shadowing. If you look at Wikipedia, it's technology where a young man or junior follows the older like a shadow, gradually engaging and trying some actions. We've tried this technology and it's amazingly effective. We were quite surprised by the speeds ourselves. A young person literally in 2 and 3 months starts picking up the action that he was a part of with the senior. Whether it's negotiations, at first the person can't even find the analysis on negotiation preparation. In 3 months, he takes in 3 months he starts taking initiative in negotiation, and he starts making sense from the business point of view in the negotiations. So that's our mentorship experience, and I'm prepared to answer questions here. There is a lot to be told here. So what else do we have on as far as the technologies we work with? There's a separate technologies that's called revolving communications. It's a fast content turnover device. About once every 2 weeks, every startup, in that sense, every startup creator goes through what could be called pitching with us, but with us it's more like a business meeting where every business constructor discusses his own business situation with other business makers, and so we work along this scheme where you can see where the person meets other businessmen, and it's mostly attended by young people, and they discuss planned activities. Well, it's 20 or 30 minutes ago, they have a quick discussion, and then the person takes action, and then in about 2 weeks, he comes back with the results in 2 weeks, and there is a discussion, and there is some reflection on what was done. All of these actions, all of the results, all of those typical situations, all of the scenarios are stored in the situation bank, but the most important thing there, they're left in the people's mind. Well, they become a part of a certain environment where you have some icons that signify certain situations that are situations that people often face, and we have a bank of situations that's accumulated, and that really speeds up the conversation. Why can't we afford to have 20 minutes now? Because the community that takes part in this communication in 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, as a rule, they already know what's being spoken of, and they're quick to offer some tips that they have used in their experience. And moderator of such communications, now it's the youth. It's not me moderating this communication. The young people with experience of project sessions in innovation schools. Yes, Tatiana Mikhailovna, this communication is moderated by graduates of Unkova School, students of Anna Lubchenko, Svetlana Goltzer, Elena Ushakova, and me to some degree. It's our direct link with innovation, pedagogy, and project and educational and project education formats. So not only have the innovation schools graduates, but the moderation work in such revolver communication is the priority of the people who have gone through innovation training, education. So we found some use for them, and that's something they're running. So what are the effects? People know each other. It forms a community. In an ecosystem terms, it's a community. A proper status is established that periodically converts into a change of their role in Technospark. So the person who has shown himself well in this communication and has shown himself well in the games, selection games, actually can ask for another role and bigger responsibility. He may actually receive not one startup, but 2 or 3. So those are 2 typical examples. And when it comes to communication, once again, there is content that has been processed from a business and from the business standpoint. I'm going to skip forward a little bit. So how do we do our diagnostics and selection? Diagnostics and selection are this is where the regular assessment methods do not work. We cannot allow ourselves interviews and surveys because it's where you test communication skills and reasoning skills, but it doesn't test actions, and we cannot afford diagnostics to take the role of a business builder in real life because it's a huge investment risk. If we take the person who has not gone through the selection in a year, about maybe in 6 months, we could see that the person is not right, and we have already spent the money, we already have the reputation risks. So the company investors are not prepared to do this. It's too expensive and unsafe. It has to be done fast. It would be good to see about 200 people in one day. So those are the parameters we were given by the businesses, that we take on people that are selected in this sort of format. To see 200 people in a day, and then we'll take somebody. Only the game allows to simulate real business situations and practice decision making on tight deadlines. So we have 2 game formats, and today at the masterclass I will speak of the visual novel. It's a part of the selection package for the selection games, but the best game we have is a business game, which is called Build a Company, Sell a Company. A business game is made up in the following way: following the senior comrades, following Petr Georgich Shedravitsky, we think that the actions, that competency is always about action, committed done in a certain situation. And in order to create a situation where you could make the action and somehow find technical application for it, it takes certain it takes certain diagnostic tools. So these are our tools. We have an expert who provides a situation bank. We have a developer diagnostician who creates a game scenario, and we have the actual player who acts within the situations. So those are the 3. Only these 3 positions together simultaneously are able to act on the game, on the playground. Expert provides situations from business life. Developer creates game architecture, and the player acts within the situation. Something can be done that could lead to a diagnostic assessment of competencies. So the development of the game, of the diagnostic game, it always has to do with 3 positions in order to make it relevant. as diagnostic assessment. So we have negotiations, business forums, working with hands, working with online bank. So there's different activities that are present in the game. So the player situation is a various activities over 10 hours, a huge range of activities. I still have a little bit time left, so I have to hurry up. Not to take up time on the game, I'll show a 40-second video where you can just more or less see visually how it all happens. Attention to the screen, please. I hope you can hear me, but in any case, you will see the visual. Build the company, sell the company. Tech entrepreneurship access point. Hybrid format, online, offline. Intensive module, 10 hours. Experience of taking risks. Robotic host. Personal digital footprint. Pardon me. I have to show the next slide. So before that, we had our basic game and the graphic novel that we'll attempt at the masterclass today. It's also interactive, but the decision has to be made not in an economical situation where there are different roles, and you have to get in touch with them. So how open a company, hire people. Visual novel is a more of a lighter option. During the 2 hours, you can make some decisions as you read novels. And as you make decisions for the main character, you change the plot. You can live 10 years of a young man in search of his place in business. It's also quite interactive. There are a lot of decisions to be made over the course of the novel. There are about 100 major decisions, not to count the minor ones. Competence profile for tech entrepreneur that we're trying to construct. Allow me to repeat myself. The ontological status of competency consists of the following. They do not exist naturally as a part of human nature. They only exist within the framework of certain position of activity, and they're established in a specially constructed diagnostic mechanism. So what we have this entrepreneurial profile competency. It does not coincide with what is published in popular publications. Of course, we're very curious about what was done by Isaac Fruitman, and for a long time we've used his non-cognitive competencies that he speaks of in his papers. We discussed self-motivation, resilience, discipline, things like that. And then we were forced to transition to our own list. So this is our line of competencies that we deal with. But generally, so there are positive competencies that we see in the game. That's chance screening for entrepreneurial, technology preparation, company building. Those are the design activities. It's more about entrepreneurial than engineering. It's pressure on independent partner, unexpected competency. Doesn't have to do with manipulation. It's about negotiating with the partner what sort of a labor distribution system we're creating, and it's discontinuation of obsolete solutions, and it's more of a reflexive competency. It's when an entrepreneur consciously forces himself to forego some positive effects of the past, when with the change of the situation you have to start working differently. And we have a line of fighting for privilege. When entrepreneur thinks that he feels that the state or someone owes to him effective activity. When the entrepreneur thinks that he can make believe that he built a company, show some non-existing indicators. that exist in some that only exist in his presentation, and perhaps receive a grant, a subsidy that they're hoping to get. And that's that's a relationship instead of doing business. When an entrepreneur cannot face the common sense and just drags all of his social relationships along with him to the loss of the business that he's building, to the detriment. Startup diploma, that's other entrepreneurial practice. Those are the few key indicators. In 2018, with the help of the games, we've started our selection process. In 2019, we already had students from 2 universities as part of our practice. So we have 20 graduates in 15, working in 15 startups. We have 5 senior partners. You can see that our senior partners are maintaining a few startups, and they need junior partners too, because you don't always the senior partner is not always present in the startup. So we'll have 18 program graduates by summer 2021. It's not a very big number, but considering the kind of effect that we're all very much counting on, that in 3-5 years the number of companies will grow, will multiply, and the number of workplaces as well. So now we have 13 institutes of higher learning all over the country. We don't have the Far East, but we've made it all the way to Urals. So we have Novosibirsk, and in the European part, some other, a lot of other universities. So a few conclusions to be made on the topic of our conference. Okay, environment density. In my appearance, and I'm addressing my colleagues, pedagogians. Environment density is the first objective parameter when we talk about when we have any conversation on knowledge and competency. The gap in density, environment density, is a pedagogical challenge that we took upon ourselves within Technospark, and actually Technospark engaged some pedagogians to bridge that gap with the practice I just spoke with, by both games and entrepreneurial practices. And working with such a gap, it makes us make competencies and literacies more specific. At the moment we start, we have to face specifically what we have to work with. The tech competencies mentioned above is just the result of us trying to get more specific on the competencies that we see as too general. This is an overview of the literature that is needed when dealing with games and entrepreneurial activity, and that's it. I'm pretty much done. So we are an educational startup ourselves. We're EdTech, a startup. We're a part of the Technospark company group, and our work has to do with the development of educational initiative at the Technospark. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your paper. It really expands our ideas on interaction within the educational environment and educational practices. I propose we continue, and since the issues that are brought up are mostly, as the questions we have, are the questions that we have from our participants, from our speakers. Tatiana Mikhailovna, do you support this proposition? Yes, maybe just one question. Well, it's just maybe one of the acute issues. Anna, do you separate entrepreneurial activity and entrepreneurial literacy in some way? Just a clarifying question. Tatiana Mikhailovna, yes, thank you. That's an important question. It's a question from Andrei Alexandrovich Torov, who's also a speaker on this track. We don't have any literacies, competencies, and I would even say skills. We don't, anything outside of entrepreneurial activity. Our ontological status, well, the notions of competencies, literacies, and even knowledge and skills. So all of this only exists as action within the position structure and not in vacuum. Yeah, because in us, activity does not take in vacuum. We follow Petr Shidravitsky. So we only have action that in a secondary way, perhaps just to explain it, we just call it competence just to make it easy for the pedagogians, but it's actually activity within an entrepreneurial situation. Yeah, just a clarifying question, thank you. And we can just discuss the different approaches during our discussion session. And so the next speaker Chorov Andrei Alexandrovich, please do take the floor. The floor is yours.
Good morning, colleagues. I hope you can hear me. I'll try to start my screen, and I suggest that we think about the questions of evolving into the education system, the representatives of the senior generation, the old generation, what their potential may be and their place in this system. They are not pedagogues, they haven't ever done talking about teachers. And what is this new phenomenon, this silver mentorship, silver tutorship? What is that? Let's think about that. So let's start from the following slide, which is one that can answer the question just how, in what way we can refer to the ecosystem systemic approach in education, what moves us to that. Well, from my point of view, the reasons are the poly-vector kind of transformation of society today. The most important and typical vectors that we have to deal with being wait, can you see my screen? Yes, we can, and we can hear you. Yes. You can unfold the screen, but I'm trying to do that, but I cannot. I haven't been able to so far. Okay, now here I go. Yeah, just a second, please. All right. Okay, let's just see how. Yeah, all right. So, which vectors is that we're going to talk about on the everyday basis? The global transformation vectors, digitalization. For us, especially in terms of silver, oh, you know, it's the screen. All right. Then I will ask technical service. Will you be so kind as to help me? I will reduce the time of my speech accordingly. The vectors of transformation. Yes, open. Yes. All right, a bit higher. And one slide. All right. Okay. What we have to deal with is only vectorness. Is the transformation of future of our civilization. Is this digitalization, individualization, personalization of different facets of different sides of life. And of course, it's all connected dialectically because, for example, well, with the individualization comes globalization and the other way. No one says they are not mutually acceptable. And in any case, all these factors become global elements of our life. Very deep creativeness and openness. From my point of view, all these transformation vectors of our civilization in education are closely connected between each other, and they bring up a situation, a sort of new agenda about new results of education. Education, for example, question of digital literacy in issues of self-building, self-determination, self-projecting future. Well, that can be put as separate one, and this is what we've been talking about recently, and some of the others as well. So in this sense, I would like to pay attention to ethics. Well, vectors that they are well. From my point of view, this is in this is the schematic approach. Why I just have such a big potential? We should keep 100% vector. From our point of view, well, what is the characterization of the well, we talk about horizontal direction in the components of this ecosystem. So when we speak about the subjects of the education activities, but as well, we have to add that it's important that it will be just sort of that's change. This will be just part of the ecosystem. In the biological, it's much more creative kinds of relationships. Even if we keep a little deep in our memory, well, we can understand the kind of work and symbiotic relationships in biology, like plants, they can be interactive very effective. We have to understand that these connections here are plus they are mutually beneficial, sort of like a symbiosis in which certain benefits are received by both sides, parts, such as, for example, both the pedagogue and the school student, and all the subjects education producers. For example, I've been using in my presentation, even though it was prepared a couple of days ago, both the approaches that were designated by Markovich, the model approach, part of terms and understandings. So I try to rearrange that and so I try to maintain the part. I to pay attention to the fact that every of the educational activity frame of the other conditions of the activity. Not just that, but here we have some literacy, ecosystem, helping us to see how to connect literacy. The point is that in the system, users, consumers, and reducers are well, and this is the definition of literacy. It's like speaking, procuring, and utilizing. So, but we have speaking and using information is users, consumers, and using information, reducer, well, utilize information that old and so on. But unite as the represent the meeting Jack already said. It's a certain kind of mutual for joint. So what they mean for all this? We cannot once here. It's about projecting in education means education, and this about activity is the core of the functional structure of their system. Everything that about was kind of and it's about variativeness. It's about openness. Next slide, please. So now we would like to see just how these vectors transformation, how they influence the digitalization makes horizontal connections more multiple, increases the number, and increases also the it reaches the sub relationships as well. But there are also risks, and German Gref, our political, he believes that the artificial intellectual will be able to diagnose our abilities and sources and everything, and it will build an individual education that's necessary for us. From my point of view, it's like humanization of the individual and creation of the person of ability to create and future and create his own. Individualization creates creativeness and multiplicity, and it leads to this conditions of and there's the risks. That's the sort of example better. Петр Аркадьевич Столыпин reformed this issue, and this was related to the education in the economic sphere in related patriarch and Orthodox facts also of the Russian history. And now I'm moving further with this said, we have to realize that a very interesting situation occurred, sort of dialectic, and it means the education ecosystem is the appropriate kind of answer to the working with objectives of objects, but at the same time, it's determined the ecosystemic approach is one of the most adequate approaches to the challenges of modern times that we are doing now. And it's interesting now to understand just role and place in the system in context belongs to silver and one of the factors of education. This basic example community of silver mentors of Moscow University. Try to introduce professional class. This inner generational communication that is done for reasons of education and education in any kind of activity that changes the subject of which he is. And it can be also transferred self-education, Phoenix education, lifelong learning, individual projects, and so on. So these are people who studied, learned the program of tutorial activity, and these are people that, as a result of the relationships and interaction, their students, certain conditions are created, not just hard skills. In Anna said much talk about interesting model when the students shadow after their mentor and the kind of flow years, and he becomes master and also of his well, not about soft skills, but for us as mentors, they they organize soft skills, are skills that relate to self-management, and that's to the regime of continuous education. How did this sort of education start? It started in MD2 in 2017. There was a start given to the program Moscow Planket as result of our actors activity working and the reading ecology. There was a Silver University created on the pit of university. Alexander Evgenievich Levin being the founder and the ideologist. It performed a lot of tasks. Generally, this program of the Moscow quality of life of such silver age. But what we're trying to do is we're kind of focus on the fact that the silver members are especially potential. They have to be a valuable part of the modern system of education, higher education. So in these 3 years, including 2020, the still data, several thousand people are instructed to do this. People included various kinds of education, special in this large field. This program very importantly the silver enter their age, break down the push down habit. The cases we have 2 or 3 cases outside. Educational status, but I'm just saying moving forward in 2020, of course, new reality here. Out of 8 programs, were mostly professional certification, but our program has got remained in 2019. Moved to the fact that based on the educational programs of the base of activities, civil micro society formed with the silver originally from the idea of creating the inner educational communication to an effect use education to overcome the generation gap, that sort of thing. Then this idea transformed into meaningful professional community, and those the silver members, they went through the process qualification upgrade and and the year 2020 and 2020 membership was officially formed at first 3 persons here who had this status. So far, the status rather so after hearing by Anna just now, we will take advantage into consideration some of the methods that allow to actually competences, outline competences necessary, but other than competence, there's also some other demands for personal characteristics as well. Okay, let's move forward. As a result, what we have today, just some numbers about silver mentors. As for today, we have 58 silver mentors. They have gone through special qualification education upgrade when teaching and training on humanitarian things, and humane. They had probation, and they became mentors for 5 PhD students, several school teachers, 20 pedagogues, and 10 parents, students as well. So let's keep moving forward. Or now a little bit more about what this mentorship really was and what place role SEAL mentors can actually take. Could be an ecosystem, for example, the university education of MPU. Andrei Alexandrovich, we have 1 more minute. I'm sorry. Yeah, very shortly. And maybe I will that maybe we can for questions. For questions, look at the slide and see information about silver cancers, so that children use the program intentionally, thoughtfully, so that the choice will be theirs. And they really try to educate academically. They their own in projecting, in researching, in law, and carefully we will add something to this is pedagogical parent university that members also take shape play. Well, just ask a question and I will answer it in the chat or in live discussion. Thank you. Questions that you can see chat now. Yeah, we found probably mentioned that key questions on what grounds we consider on what grounds we consider important to bring biological definitions into solution. Biologists are in shock. We have to follow this. This have to understand just how justified answers are the ecological issue. Well, I will try to answer shortly. It's not just a question to me, question to the entire community who actually the academic approach as the main approach to the country. So this was productively discussed yesterday. So certain reasons were said yesterday. Okay. So this is not the unique answer. I think that this really has roots and grounds. And if you remember what Chernavsky of Spira, we think that the harmonic transfer of scientific humanitarianism. Well, I believe that this approach should be discussed, and we should understand that that alongside with it, we checked out yesterday systematic active approach, foresight approach, and culture historic approach, cultural active approach. So many approaches that we've been considering, and of course we should take these papers. Of your talk, hopefully also not more than the time that we read about. Maybe just a bit less, so that later we'll move to the questions. All right, thank you. I will be phonic. I will have 3 parts. I talk. First, I will declare my position about the content of what I'm going to do. And the content of the conference, I think this is normal, but without with your position, it's not possible to receive content. So yesterday, in many ways, yesterday's discussion in many ways required to take certain decisions. I think that when we discuss it today, probably we will discuss that. But I will tell you immediately by the course of the presentation. So what I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about this is this intimacy. It's the measurement, the size of the system, general meaning, so to speak. It's all directed at the harmonization of what became something that was established already, something that became, and what's really happening. So this is the variant of systemic approach I feel that is designed to harmonize this what does it mean in particular? So what is it that we have to talk about the systematic approach? This is means, from my point of view, to hold the whole in activities and the particular units, certain units. So it's in any component, any part, you have certain whole. In what particular entity can we speak about this organization? That's this second part of my presentation. So the basic part is it's the concretization, is the formation of it, is the programming. So this is the process that will find organization. And now we can move to my presentation. We can open it. Open it. Yes. Thank you. Now, from this position that I kind of formulated, in order to do it responsibly, do anything responsibly, well, the name of this slide is also quite equivocal. Quite equivocal. Where do we put the here? We should keep it, not change it, or we should not keep it but change it. You have to be very responsible about the programming. What is it that we are observing? What is it that we are what is it we want to add? So here here that this lifelong learning is characterized by complexities of the world, as principal characteristics, and the further complication of the world, both in its ground and its indications and expressions.
So now, before we move on to the second square with comments, I'll take a chance. I'll risk. I may even stick my neck out and juxtapose myself to other speakers in this transition of this trait of uncertainty and complexity of the world when we talk about the content of lifelong education. And when we move on to production of the new content in education, I would take a chance to say, I would risk and I would offer a line, a topic for discussion that education, lifelong education, just an education in general, should not be that geared at the employer's demands. Of course, it should take them into consideration, but that it shouldn't be fully tailored towards their expectation. Another thing that could be another unpopular opinion about the education content-wise, it shouldn't be that it shouldn't follow. It shouldn't change the content to the as per the demands of the state, and also as per the demands of specific customers, even if they pay for it. In that case, allow me to repeat myself. It's not a categorical denial of all of these possible lines as a renewal, content renewal sources, but I think that the actual education area should grow its own reflexive muscle and reflectively cover all of these demands and requests, undoubtedly. That undoubtedly are vital and they have their own grounds and that are worthy of all sorts of attention, but education should not be the servant of all of these masters. Education should have its own cultural and historical position, and based on that position, on this cultural and historical, and also as far as keeping in touch with the present, past, and the future. For me, it's one of the kinds of integrity, and based on that reflective coverage of other various subjects on the field of educational content renewal, to produce new content and be the main cultural and historical subject of the process. I'm very much doubtful that education maybe. Perhaps maybe it's too late. Maybe the train has left the station. But as far as a matter of discussion and my position, I would resist, and I would note this position as important. Okay, and if you talk about reflective coverage of other subjects, if education tries to produce content for lifelong learning, it's important to keep in mind two traits. Non-linearity, it's part of it's the name of the paper, and being ahead of the trends. What do I mean by that? I'll get back to that a little later. For now, it's just we just talk about the how content is generated. To me, new content is just can be described within two frameworks. It's multitude of subject matter. And right away, what do I mean by that? I think that new content in education, including lifelong education, should not be geared at the subject organization. Subject organization of just based on science alone. I will get back to that later as well. There are plenty of other sources for subject organization when it comes to educational content, and all of this multitude needs to be kept in mind within the new content and the so-called delta literacy, which is and here. I can just generally describe it. What do I mean by that? I think the delta literacy is a certain, well, my personal position that has to do with There is no need to guess. You don't need to create all these endless lists of literacies that largely are situative and serve the current needs. But we need to note the construct that would allow to constantly, not to construct lists of literacies, but to provide technological vector, technological organization, changes in the various literacies and the construction of a level of literacy by some additional element. I'll get back to that later about the supplemental component. I spoke of it yesterday, based on the principle of supplementarity. So on the first slide, it's very important to just note, just make a note on the content of lifelong education. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Oh, yeah, you can. Okay, thank you. So it's a very, every slide here is this is only one slide that can be shown for the discussion out of this presentation. This is just how the construction of my, that's how my message is constructed. Once again, we don't know where we put the comma in the name just yet, whether we change the content or not, and we will just reproduce it on a different qualitative level. It's very important to sort out the logic of educational content in lifelong learning. For now, it's constructed on a discrete, final automated machine. So yesterday there was a question that Kirill Baranikov reacted to when I wrote. I wrote that it's kind of strange, lifelong learning, but we have discrete results, to which Kirill replied, well, the assessment is also discrete. I'll get back to the story a little later as well. So what is the scheme? What does it symbolize? So on the way in, we have the left arrow. We have the science with a specific basic type of thinking through which this makes which is a foundation for school subjects, which is arrows A and B. We have physics, and we copy things from physics. So we just basically copy the discipline. So all of these copies are gathered, or they're you can see them in the oval shapes with double edges that are connected within the curriculum in some sorts, and heroically we manage to establish interdisciplinary connections, and we even try to also include convergence, and it's all great. But on the way out, on the output, what we get is the results. You see the arrow. You see it's confined within itself. So we get educational results that are manifested all the way to the markup procedure, assessment procedures. Everything, it seems everything adds up in our assessment procedures. So we report on the results, and then we get into the issues of how these results can be used as means for entrepreneurial activity. You can see the previous speech for that, to maximum per capita income and other traits. So things are a lot worse off here. So in this case, this logic of creation of educational content based on finite automated machine. Just as a very scheme, it accumulates surplus that it makes not competition worthy, makes the whole institution not valid from the content point of view. Next slide, please. I'm not going to dwell on this for too long. So it's a stop situation. What we have is we have a stop content in terms of reality of meaning. as far as aware actions are concerned, both in both on day-to-day life level and when it comes to project activity or research activity, management for most part. So there are a lot of questions here. Okay, scientific perception of the world that largely was a conservator of the content. For me, it's a stop situation in terms of content. Though I have nothing against science, but if the science is the only source of the scientific worldview, that's stop content. And adaptation priority is when you have the learning kind of thinking, which is fundamental for a scientific worldview, largely geared at providing adaptation. We always hear this in lifelong learning. Adapt to the future, adaptation to what happened someplace. So it's important to include and adapt, and you'll be happy. I apologize. You've shared a lot of things on the content. How do you feel if we continue this in course of discussion? It would be really sad to lose a general discussion, or you have a lot more slides coming. Okay, let's make it 2 or 3 more minutes on the most crucial thesis, and then we'll go into the general discussion. Okay. Okay. So next slide, please. Perhaps I will end on that. Next slide, please. And so if we were to speak of the idea of emerging content, it's very important to mention that reflective scanning techniques that includes 2 counters. First counter relates to to the past, what happened when it happened, and what will happen when it happens. So it's a reflection before effect. The examples of individualization and personalization. If we look at it in terms of the whole and the parts, to me, individualization is a supplementary element within the existing situation of the emerging content. But the supplementary element of what's integrity, of some integrity. I've mentioned in the chat yesterday, and that's something I would want to see discussed today, for the social potential of the social capital rather than human potential and capitals, as it's with individualization. So those types of those 2 types of reflective scanning regarding the past and the future, it maintains the mental transitions between the ideal and the real, and the schematization of these transitions is very important. Visualization is very important in this context. Visualization environments. I have more slides on that. You can see it in the presentation if it's not appropriate right now. So generally, what I insist on is the notion that we need. In all of our discussion, we need to keep in mind the connection between the whole and the parts, and we need to responsibly qualify the novelties that we offer as a supplementary element to the situation that we have. The way what part of what integrity this component will become, and that's what we use the future-related reflection. Yes, thank you so much. It's a very important paper that makes. That moves us on to the next program lines, and that's why we've placed it at the end of the track. Thank you so much. I propose now we have 10 minutes left before we start with our masterclass at noon. Please note the link that you need to log into the masterclass again. That's a note from our tech support. I'd like to offer each speaker to bring up 1 question that you would want to ask, and then we'll choose what questions you have for each other that are important, and those will be the questions. Those will be the questions we'll discuss. So now each speaker can put forth 1 question they would want to ask, 1 key question, or maybe it could be the question to the whole session. Gennady Nikolaevich, just give us a moment, please. So do we have any questions? Is there anything that you've seen in the chat or that you would want to bring up now, that so we can discuss them? So we can discuss them during our session. Yes, go ahead, please. I apologize. I have to have some people intervening here. I have to stop them a little. But Gennady, it's quite a voluminous paper. Maybe I didn't quite grasp it. How did you distinguish teaching by activity and lifelong learning that's does not boil down to activity learning? And do you separate them? Do you or and why do you do that? And so, what other questions do we have from speakers? Let's just speak of the speaker questions. Tatiana Vladimirovna, we have too little time for me to ask question. I will let other colleagues ask your questions. Any other questions? Who else would want to? Tatiana Vladimirovna, Konstantin Mikhailovich is writing. Well, I was actually talking about the children, so it's not only it wasn't only about college students. So, what is the acute question that we have up for discussion? Not clarifying question, but just a general question for our common discussion. Considering that we're short on time, there were a lot of questions related to one thing. So, functionality-wise, what does the systemic approach provide? So, with the approaches that we have, why do we need the ecosystem approach with that? Gennady Nikolaevich put forth his option to him. Systemic approach is an approach that provides the integrity. So maybe Anna Ilashkina, maybe considering that we have the 5 minutes we have, maybe for you, regarding your activity approach, since you say there, there's no point for you to separate knowledge from action, for what happens in action. So, do you have anything there? Do you have somehow document the need for this approach as a part of your activity? Gennady Nikolaevich, you may want to get engaged in this conversation, and let's see. I think that could be the central topic for our discussion. Well, we deal within the labor distribution system. We deal with businesses and companies. That's why what you refer to with an ecosystem approach as big, important, significant traits, I find all of these things with us. Of course, there's a horizontal connection. So, of course, continued communications. And in my paper, I've tried to show how well developed it is within our system. But do we need this terminology with this degree of similarity? I'm not so sure. We try to deal with the economical anthology and the labor distribution system. So it's hard for me to tell, do we need that within the businesses? And as a communication technique for communicating with other communities, if we were to speak of our business community, of course, it's very nice to see that we can find this sort of a communications code, but internally we rarely speak of ecosystem. We do a lot of similar things, but we don't speak of it in this way. So that's so. Okay, Gennady Nikolaevich. So maybe you'll say a few words. So what are the tasks that makes us to make what is there in the ecosystem approach that maybe not seen the activity-based, something that cannot be seen with an activity-based approach? I'd like to make a clarification here because in Gennady's paper, there's a lot said about systemic approach. And Anna is saying the same thing. I think that it's very important to distinguish a systemic approach because it's quite common and everyone uses it. Yes, comment accepted, because it's ecosystem and system approach. Two different things. We're talking about ecosystem approach, but so this is a turning point, because everyone starts speaking ecosystem approach, because everybody says yes, we use it. So where's the added benefit? So there are two plots here. I can speak of it briefly. Integrity I base myself on the notion that what's done by the entrepreneurs when it comes to activity approach within a situation, to me, is a supplementary component as a part of integrity referred to as a systemic intellectual activity approach, whether it's pure thinking, communications, a process of cognition and reflection. And with the various implementations with the different organizations that Maxim Asovsky spoke with, which is designing, programming, and so forth. Based on that, I think that we need, first of all, there has to be there has to be a movement coming from the educators that maintain this integrity. And mentally, of course, when it comes to activities, sometimes they come short. But I'm just saying generally in mass, they don't go to thought action level that that Anna Ivashkina has well shown. So they overcompensate for our shortcomings, for where we come short. Yes, I can see you wanted to say something. Go ahead. Well, I wanted to say that perhaps we must and we should close our discussion right now. So perhaps maybe we could offer up some final thesis. Let me offer up a final thesis, perhaps as a question, so we end on a question. And I will name it in a metaphorical way, problematization of Georgy Afanasyev, because he was an active part of health group yesterday and today. He will also be present at the masterclass. The question is the following. And it's largely has to do with Tanya Ilashkina. I'm not going to discuss it in detail now. We'll discuss it during the plenary session. So the problematization has to do with the following: the human being within the activity approach has lost its modesty. At some point, he started feeling that he is really the key element of a living ecosystem, not a biological ecosystem, but not a biological system, but ecosystem. And the way Georgy phrased it, that a person writes that he's a king of the animals, but the animals can't read, and they that's why they can't hear that he's a king of the beasts. That's why ecosystemic approach, and that's something that I've heard from Gennady. I think it's very important. Maybe it may be just something I'm adding to what Gennady was saying. When we talk about the area, the sphere of education, we don't indicate the approach we interpret it as, and we can look at this sphere from the various approaches. And when we look at the area of lifelong education, ecosystemic approach is a cultural limit. Because if we don't look at lifelong education in an ecosystemic way, it can lose its modesty and its boundaries and react to all of the changes. Now we have computers, now we have robots, now something else comes up, and we learn everything. And ecosystemic outlook sets up cultural limitation. It says, wait up. We need to think where we put the comma, what we keep and what we innovate. And to close our track here, why don't we all continue this during our masterclass group, and why don't we close on the question that ecosystemic approach sets up limitations on our courage when it comes to our activity? So that's a good question. I even wrote this down. It's a question of let's resist. That was a call from Gennady, and it was the question how it's set up. It's such a good question. Let's not mix it with our reflection. Let us resist. Let us meet during the masterclass, and then we'll meet at the negotiation platforms, and then we'll have our final plenary session. Yeah, and we'll get back to during the plenary session. Enjoy your break. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you.